as far as genes contributing to somebody being more violent, no, I don't buy it. And if it did end up being that was the case, I would feel that it was probably more off of they probably was genetically modified, and Monsanto probably had something to do with it.
Okay. So you're blaming Monsanto for creating like psychopaths? Because I mean, it's verifiable that a psychopath or a sociopath cannot like just up and decide to not be a psychopath or sociopath. Like it's not within them to just not be that way.
We can move on. And did you want to ask your next question?
Yes. So can you please account for psychopaths and sociopaths with your view of morality?
Sure. So let me get there for my notes' sake. You jumped back up to question number 2. I got you. Okay. I got you. Hold on one sec. So, psychopath or sociopath, you're basically in a position where a psychopath or a sociopath, you're going to, and I know your position, you're stating that somehow this individual does not know right from wrong. He doesn't have objective morality written on his heart. This is my answer, John, and I don't know if you're going to like this answer, but first off, I don't feel like you could even make sense of that answer or that question without borrowing my worldview. And what I mean by that is you're assuming that there is, in fact, a good, better, best. Okay? You're assuming morality by asking that question. But secondly, as far as, a sociopath or a psychopath, that person, in my worldview, is somebody who has denied the Word of God, who has denied Scripture, who has suppressed that issue of right and wrong. He's suppressed it within sin. And as a result, he's come to a point where he can't recognize good and evil. He's at a point where it's been suppressed. Now, and I know you're not going to like this, and the viewers aren't going to like this, but this is the cold reality we live in. This is not God's world. Scripture says that the God of this world is Satan. Found in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, that he's blinded the minds of the unbelievers, preventing them from seeing the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ. And part of that blinding is making them feel that God is somehow accountable for all the evil in the world, and pointing fingers and putting a finger up towards God because you somehow believe that God is in control of all this. When I look at a baby who's born with autism, when I look at a child who's born with deformities, or if I'm seeing tragedies happen on the news, I know that this is not my God's world. And he is not ultimately like a puppet master pulling that string to kill that person or to take them or what have you. And I argue with Christians about that fact. So the reason that sociopaths are here, in a sense, there is a Satan, whether or not you recognize him or not. And he's not the redheaded guy with pitchfork and horns. And you can see that as a cop-out, and you can dismiss that all you want. But there is a sense of good and evil here on this earth. And he's out to kill, steal, and destroy you and your soul. In which case, that sociopath, that individual, Scripture says that he was given over to a depraved mind, and ultimately that truth was suppressed to such an extent that he is going to reach justice. He's going to be condemned, and I believe there's a place called hell for people like him. Now, I would ask you to define what you mean by social. There's those with mental disabilities, and there's those who are psycho and who go on killing spree for people. But again, I think that just by asking that question, you are appealing to a sense of morality, which shows that it's not subjective, it is objective, and God put it there by design to show you that you needed Jesus Christ. Okay.
So just so that I can understand you correctly, or show that I understand you, you're saying that I have to borrow from your worldview to determine if someone has a mental illness.
Well, how do you know that evolution didn't just give production to him, and that's us advancing? How do you know that natural selection didn't choose him to move us forward?
Well, because natural selection isn't some kind of causal agent, like, or it's not some kind of thing that exists out there with like a top hat and a cane that, you know, meticulously crafts all these evolutionary lines. It's not like that. So I'm understanding correctly that I have to borrow from your worldview in order to say that someone is mentally disabled?
No, I didn't say that. Okay. And I don't, that's not at all what I said. What I stated
okay, so I have to borrow from your worldview to determine if someone is a psychopath or a sociopath.
Somebody, and we would need to, again, define these terms because I don't want to speak incorrectly. But my understanding of a sociopath and a psychopath is somebody with mental disabilities, in which case they can't discern between right and wrong. They're usually equated to somebody who goes out and murders people. Okay, is that my understanding of what you mean by that?
Well, the technical definition of psychopath is a person suffering from chronic mental disorder with abnormal or violent social behavior.
Correct. Yes. So with that definition, okay, I would say that, yes, to ask that question, you're assuming that there is a worst, better, and best, that there is morality, that one sin is above another sin. You're borrowing from my worldview in that sense, in which case, but then I answered your question, which this earth is in the hands of the enemy for the time being, in which case he can account for what evil is taking place on this earth. Yes, that was my answer.
Okay. Well, you know, psychopathy and sociopathy can be detected in very young children, and you know, I want to say that they're a genetic thing. Like it's like you can't, like it's not something that you sleep with somebody one time and then you wake up and you're a psychopath. Like you know, it's kind of genetic. So I mean, does God create psychopaths?
No, and I think that's a misrepresentation of my position. You know, first off, genetics, and I would ask you to do more research into that as far as genetics, and you know, because they're accounting everything to be genetics. I mean, it was 15, 20 years ago, nobody had ADHD, and now everybody does, and then everybody, genetics is cancer. And, they're equating cancer to be that of genetics when, I don't buy it. First off, I don't buy the interpretation of your of simply genetics being the cause of a sociopath or a psychopath. I don't buy that for a second. Is there things that happen within the egg and within the sperm? Is there things that happen? Yes. And I would state that ultimately we're in a fallen world. And if it hadn't been for the fallen, those things would not be in existence. We would be in a perfect day, like in the days of Adam and Eve, ultimately be healthy and prosperous and moving forward in the right direction.
Okay. Well, can a person choose not to be psychopathic or sociopathic?
Can somebody choose not to?
Right.
Yes, I would say that absolutely they can. I think it goes beyond just genetics. Are there people that are born to be more violent? If that's your question, if genetics somehow caused them to be unaccountable, no, I don't buy that for a second. Otherwise, I wouldn't serve that God if it was that they're just being born. And it goes on to the other topic, like whether or not you're born to have a sexual preference. I don't believe that, because then how would God hold you accountable for those actions? I wouldn't serve such a God, and I don't believe Scripture supports that. So, as far as a psychopath or a sociopath, yes, I believe it's a surrendering of their will. For young babies to be born, here's the thing, John, and this is just me being personal with you and your viewers. I was told that my baby was going to have deformities, and we were asked if he wanted to be aborted, and he was fine. He was perfect. He's the best thing that's ever happened to me, and he regularly shows me that God is real and that he loves me. And so, he gave me a son. So no, I don't buy that for a second. And if they somehow found out that genetics had something to do with violent behavior, I know for a fact they're trying to deaden the objective laws of morality right now to make it better. And DARPA are working to make soldiers more efficient because they found that they're reluctant to shoot somebody on a whim through command. I know such experiments such as those exist. Because that objective morality is so strong within that of a man. But as far as genes contributing to somebody being more violent, no, I don't buy it. And if it did end up being that was the case, I would feel that it was probably more off of they probably was genetically modified, and Monsanto probably had something to do with it.
Okay. So you're blaming Monsanto for creating like psychopaths? Because I mean, it's verifiable that a psychopath or a sociopath cannot like just up and decide to not be a psychopath or sociopath. Like it's not within them to just not be that way.
Well, John, I believe that there is a suppressing of truth. I gave the analogy of a young girl going and watching a scary movie, and you put her in front of that scary movie over and over again. She'll deaden her heart, and she'll eventually love violence and give herself to sin. Okay, I believe if you look up, Operation Mockingbird or Operation MK Ultra, you'll see mind control and things of that nature. So yes, I believe that those things can exist, and ultimately somebody, yes, at the end of the day, they choose it. And so now I wasn't blaming Monsanto, and I think the viewers will see that was just a scapegoat, and you weren't really listening to what I was saying. Let me be very specific and very clear. I believe that we live in a fallen world, and in that fallen world, God is not a puppet master. He doesn't control everything. You see things like in Luke where he wished and desired that the Pharisees got baptized, and that was his perfect will. But then it shows that they denied his perfect will. God desires all men to be saved, and yet not all men are saved. Okay? Things are happening outside of God's world or outside of God's will. We live in a fallen world. So in regards to psychopaths, I am stating that yes, they more than likely have chosen that darkness and that avenue. If I found out they didn't, my response to that was this, that I wouldn't be surprised if DARPA or genetically modified human beings were being created. They're probably screwing with our genes and that's what's hilarious is because again, contest to my worldview. Why has there been such an attack against genetics, an attack against the seed of man? Because the seed of man is what gave birth to that of Jesus Christ. Satan, from the beginning, has tried to interfere with that, and it shouldn't be any surprise. You see, so again, I think I answered your question, and whether or not it's being understood, I apologize, but I feel like the viewers will recognize that I did give an adequate answer to your question.
Okay, yeah, you did by saying that people choose to be psychopaths or sociopaths, and I would just say that biology disagrees with you. That would be my only response, but evidence doesn't really seem to mean much right now.
It's not at all true, and that's not fair at all, because we haven't talked about it. You're taking a presuppositional approach. If you want to have me back on your show and go at it from an evidential approach, I'm more than willing to do that.
No, I'm taking a presuppositional approach. I'm not presupposing it. I'm using evidence, scientific evidence, to support my position. But all you're using is a Bible. I'm just saying that I'm using evidence that we see in reality, and you're using a Bible that was written by people.
Well, let me put it to you this way, John. Okay, but going back on the laws of morality for a moment. I want you to, and I know you have an audience to please, and you feel like you need to defend that position. I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that both of us are coming at it at two different sides, and both of us have that position. But think about it from just for one moment, stepping outside of your worldview for a moment. Notice where the laws of morality were put. I want you to just pay attention for a second to me. God didn't take the risk and put the laws of morality like he did in laws of logic and leave it up to the minds of men to rationalize it and dismiss it and get rid of it and think through it and all of a sudden dismiss it. He didn't even go so far to putting it into the uniformity in nature and the laws of nature, like gravity or something that could be observed through a microscope. No, our God loves you so much, dude, that he put it on the inside of you. He put it and wrote it on the inside of every heart and mind in man, so that we know that murder is wrong. We know that stealing is wrong. We know that adultery is wrong. We know those things to be wrong. And he did that by design because your heart is worth it. And he did it in desperation and put it as close as he possibly could to your being and your soul to show you that he loves you and that he died for you and that you will one day be held accountable for such laws of morality. And he sent his son to be that atonement for you. So I think that to answer your question, again, like I stated earlier, I don't see how you can stay consistent by asking, about a sociopath or a psychopath, because in an evolutionary worldview, maybe that's what evolution decided. Maybe natural selection chose him to be aggressive and weed out the weak. So you have no moral objection at this point. You can't stand back and say that that's wrong because it somehow protects social societies. Well, what happens in social societies? Why does it matter if there's no dignity, if there's no person, if there's no life, no dignity, no one to hold accountable to? Why bother with it?
We do have people. We do hold people accountable. That's the justice system, and it's been in place since before the Code of Hammurabi. We have that. Natural selection is a description of how things work in nature, just naturally. So natural selection isn't any kind of person or creature, so it can't just select somebody like that. Psychopaths exist in an evolutionary worldview because of brain chemistry and, how our brain develops and how our personalities develop and how our empathy works. I can say that it's wrong because we live in a social, group. We live in a society where working together, like anarchy is not the way to survive in modern society. It's pretty obvious that our social groups working together provide a way for us to stay at the top of the food chain, to be the apex creature on the earth. So I would say that my worldview and evolution in general can account for all of these things, and that it's not that your worldview can't. It's that it's provably wrong to cite those as the source of it. Like, we have evolution and evolutionary reasons. We have natural processes and all this other stuff to explain why those things have happened. And so to pin it on a book, I think that it's wrong to pin it on a book as being the source of it, or pin it on some deity that we can't prove to exist, that has never really shown himself to exist.
Well, I would absolutely deny that last statement. I believe God has proven his existence to all mankind in desperation for you, John, and he died for you. But going back to my worldview not being able to maybe necessarily give an account, again, we just have to agree to disagree, because I don't feel like in your answers you've provided sufficient reason behind laws of morality, laws of logic, and how something immaterial can become material. If you want to take Plato's stance, or if you want to take the great philosophers before us, they even recognized in themselves that they were a dualist, and that's how they were able to merge those two concepts. I try to throw a hand out and suggest altruism, which a lot of biologists and a lot of scientists will adhere to, of why it is that love and such things exist. You might want to research into that and see what you think. It's nature's, humans, and natureandhumans.org, I think it is the website, and they give a pretty good, clear description of what they believe and how they believe morality and things came about in an evolutionary worldview. But even the top scientists and biologists can't answer those life's most difficult questions. And I'm not just interjecting Blart in anything I can't understand. I just put Blart in there. No, I'm saying that I have an entire book that is filled with consistencies, that is filled with laws of morality, laws of logic, and I know the end game. I know that ultimately this world was a byproduct of us acting and living in an accord with what we felt was right, and God died for us, and he put us on the right path again. But so I think we would disagree. I have evidence. I can support evidence all day long. If you want to talk about evidence, I can go there. I'm not afraid to, but I don't think it should be on this particular show. At the end of the day, I think we have to look back and be objective and see which worldview could account for such things: laws of morality, laws of logic, uniformity in nature, the law of induction, and see which worldview is most consistent. And so, that's earlier. How do I know that Christianity is true apart from the other religions? Well, as I said on the phone to you, every other religion asks something from you. Christianity is the only one that I know of that gives something to you. And God did that as a result. Like I said, he put that morality on a heart that can be examined and one day will be judged.